Welcome to the first ever episode of the Strength Simplified Podcast. My name is Amsyar, and this is the pilot episode that I'll be doing for the podcast that's coming up. So I intend to start this podcast, which I've been meaning to do for a very long time, but just haven't got into it. So just a brief introduction of myself for today, and then hopefully we will have more episodes in the future. So, first things first, my name is Amsyar Hanif. I am a fitness coach from ritualgym.com and also the sports trainer for GDT Circuit FC, which is an island-wide league football club playing in the, you can say, fourth division or fourth tier of Singapore football. It's pretty complicated with Singapore football here. Uh, we have the Singapore Premier League, SFL1, SFL2, which stands for Singapore Football League, and then the IWL, which is Island-wide League, and we're at that tier of football. So I'll talk more about the journey in the SFL, the journey in IWL later on. Today is just a brief introduction of myself. All right, like I mentioned, I'm a sports trainer and personal trainer, as well as a group fitness coach in Ritual Gym. And previously, before this, I was a nurse for about 6.5 or so years, almost up to 7 years, working in the government hospitals as well as in the private sector. So I spent 2 years of my life working in Singapore General Hospital in one of the departments. Left the hospital, tried to go into some media stuff because I wanted to leave nursing at that point of time without actually knowing what I wanted to do. And then I came back into nursing again after that first venture out of nursing sort of failed and collapsed, and went back into nursing for another 4 years before realizing that I've always wanted to do or be involved in health and fitness. So here I am as a fitness coach right now. All right, I also do online coaching as well as personal training on the side. And more of those details can be found on my Instagram and stuff like that, which you can follow. It's at Amsyar HNF, AMSYAR HNF. Now, why did I decide to start this podcast? So basically, I wanted to start this podcast to get into more of a long form content as well as expanding on my ideas on Instagram. So if you've been following me on my Instagram, sometimes I do post pretty, I wouldn't say controversial topics, but topics that may be out of the norm or maybe invoke some sort of thoughts that may be different than some coaches would have, or some ideas that are controversial. I can say that, yeah. So I just wanted to expand on those ideas, give it some form of nuance and context behind why I post the things that I post. And I hope that this podcast will sort of share my ideas and my thought process behind why I post or say certain things. All right, so why did I leave the healthcare industry as well? Well, in the first place, when I was in nursing or the healthcare industry, we are the word itself means healthcare, which is to take care of a person's health. But after working in that industry for quite some time, I started to realize that it's not really so much of taking care of a person's health, but taking care of people who are already ill or have conditions that, and we need to try and get them out of that condition or uh, minimize the damage when they are going through that condition. So it wasn't really in line of with what I wanted to do. I've always wanted to help people, stay healthy, which is why I thought the healthcare industry was the way to go. But then I realized, my passion for fitness, I've been active in sports since a very young age, got into lifting back in 2012, 2013. And I realized that the best way to actually take care of your health is to get into fitness and nutrition, to eat well, to move, to exercise, to get stronger, fitter. And that's when I realized, right towards the end of my nursing career, is that, fitness industry is the way to go for me, because we are preventing people from falling sick and thus caring for a person's health. So that is what I view as true healthcare. So what we may call as preventative healthcare. So that's how I ended up in the fitness industry on top of my interest for sports and exercise and all that. So got into that, found a job at Ritual Gym, which is, I would say, a good starting point for me in my fitness career. Prior to Ritual Gym, I was doing purely freelance personal training and online training, which was pretty tough because I am still fresh in this industry. I've only been a PT for, I would say, more than a year and a half. And honestly, it was a struggle at the start because, without any proper guidance, without actually having a proper job or without clients coming in, it's hard for me to actually coach people. So that's how I decided to go into Ritual Gym. Getting the reps in, training more people on a constant basis. Yeah. So that's the podcast idea, I guess, is to actually share my ideas. But for this episode, just a little bit more on myself as well. I want to touch on my training philosophy, on why I train the way I train, or how I prefer to train and coach my clients. So when I first started off my fitness journey, it was in 2012, no, 2013, I would say. I would say late 2012 when it's my third year, my final year of nursing school. We had this module where we had to do this NAFA test or IPPT. It's a fitness test before we get enlisted into the army, which is mandatory for males in Singapore for up to 2 years. So I wanted to pass and clear my IPPT. At that point of time, I have stopped really doing sports on a constant basis. I was just doing silat, pencak silat as a martial art for fun, and didn't really get involved in much sports aside from that. So when I attempted my first IPPT, I actually just barely passed. And in order for you to get 2 months taken off your national service and be in the fit squad without having to serve the PTP phase, which is the some physical training phase, you have to get at least a silver in your NAFA test. So in my first attempt at it, I got a bronze, which is just pass, and that would not allow me to skip the first 2 months of national service. And that is why I started working out again, right? So at the same time, I put on quite a number of weight. I was a bit insecure with my own physical self, and that's something I am still trying to get over till today, because I've put on a decent amount of weight over the past few years, right? But that's aside, that's more of a different story on why I actually gained weight and stuff like that, which I will probably go through in a future episode. We're getting off tangent here right now. Let's center back into the why. So I started training just to pass the IPPT, but I fell in love with lifting. So at the same time, I was already in pencak silat and into martial arts, discovered mixed martial arts, and decided, like, you know what, I want to be an MMA fighter. So trained in MMA, got in shape, uh, got in decent shape, and got a few fights in. I got two bouts in my MMA career, one win, one loss, and then I retired. And both fights were on the same day, and it was a pretty terrible thing to go through. I would not recommend anyone to do that. All right, imagine going 3 rounds of 5 minutes to the decision, winning that, and then in the next 2 hours you're gonna have to fight again. That totally killed me, and I was done and I was gone. Right, so no, yeah. And then I went to national service, fell in love with fitness, and along the way somehow discovered powerlifting. And that's how I became a big proponent of strength training. Right, I got into powerlifting uh, right towards the end of my national service. Once I stopped being into, I didn't say I would. I didn't think can say I stopped being into MMA. I was always into MMA, and I'm still into martial arts, even though I don't practice it anymore. But yeah, there was a turning point in my life where I started to focus more on strength rather than anything. And so I got into more of a powerlifting kind of thing. And yeah, then that's about how I get there. I'm really losing my thoughts here. This is my first episode, so bear with me for this one, okay? So along the way, after being such a strength dominant kind of guy, lifting heavy and trying to break PRs and stuff like that, I would say that I blame Johnny Candito and Omar Isaf uh, for this entire journey of going into that route. I discovered hybrid training or rediscovered hybrid training uh, not too long ago, which led me to registering for my first ever High Rocks race. And that was one of the toughest things I've ever done in my life, aside from a cross country mountain bike race. Oh, yeah, I also like riding mountain bikes. That reminds me. So, yeah, got into so many things. I've got so many sports under me, and I will touch on all of that sometime in the future. Right. But yeah, when I got back into hybrid training, then I realized not everybody wants to train like a powerlifter or bodybuilder. And if you take a look at most coaches out there who focus on body transformations and personal training, you're going to find two types of coaches, or I would say three. Number one, either they are body transformation coaches who put their clients on more like a bodybuilding style training, focus on nutrition, get your lifts in, all the different styles of training and bodybuilding and concepts, which I've never got into. And then there's also the coaches who, you want to get strong, I'll put you on a powerlifting program. You'll get strong in the squat, bench, and deadlift. And the other type of trainer is the functional fitness boys, or guys or girls, guys who like to do all these like hit stuff, metcons, and all that stuff, which is pretty cool. Like I said, like I'll say, and I'll mention this over and over again, there is nothing wrong with training in those styles, but not everybody wants to do those kind of things. So I realized like hybrid training, which is closest to HIIT or not, which hybrid training, which is the closest style to like CrossFit stuff, Metcon stuff, whatsoever, has a huge appeal because it makes workouts interesting. You're able to work on different training qualities at the same time. So I decided, like, you know what, why not just get into that? And I think that is one of the best ways for most people to train, because you're training your cardiovascular health, your strength. You can get fat loss if you get your nutrition dialed in. You can also build muscle mass if you get your nutrition dialed in. So that's what I want to propagate to the world, so called. And yeah, that's how I approach my training and my training for my clients. Now, I will talk more about all these different concepts and stuff like that as we go on uh, in later episodes. This is just a pilot episode for me to test things out. I hope you guys enjoyed that short little snippet, and I hope to be back with more. Let's try and get this consistently. I'm going to try and upload once every week. And if I can't do it once every week, I will still try to do it once every week. Okay. So this is gonna be my long form content for me to explore on ideas. If you have any topics or anything that you want to ask me about from my Instagram and you want me to expand on it, right? Just drop me a DM. My Instagram is at Amsyar Hanif, at AMSYARHNF. All right. I'll respond to you and probably touch on those topics on the podcast so that everyone can benefit from that. Okay. I'll see you guys soon. And hopefully, this has been a fruitful first pilot episode. I'll catch up with you on the next one. Take care, guys. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.